Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 115. Shizun is already married. Let's go. Yes. Yes. Moran responded, but suddenly thought of something and looked worried. Shizun, I've killed so many ghost soldiers, I'm afraid the ghost realm will never forgive us. It's fine. Chu Wanning said, the move just now is just enough to scare the opponent. The souls were not destroyed, just scattered. They will gather back together in a few days. Upon hearing this, Moran looked closer and indeed saw bits of spirit fragments floating about like fireflies in the middle of the burning embers. Before he could do anything else, Chu Wanning pulled him over and said, "Run." Behind the broken wall was an even more furious group of soldiers rushing around. As Chu Wanning and Moran sprinted along the tiled roof, Moran asked as they ran, "Shizun, since they won't die, then we won't offend the ghost realm. Why don't you let me pour more spiritual energy into them to repel them all?" Chu Wanning said coldly, "Try that move again." Moran did not know why he said that, but he tried it anyway. This time, there was only a small cluster of smoke and fire, and Jiangui seemed to be very tired. It didn't have the same vigor it showed earlier. The more spiritual energy that is poured into the spiritual weapon, the longer it takes to recuperate. Chu Wanning said, "Just use enough spiritual energy. Remember that." "I will remember." After a pause, Moran added, "Shizun, I suddenly remembered something, and guess what came to my mind?" "What?" "I thought of the last time you taught me how to use Jiangui back at Peach Blossom Spring. You were very short back then." Moran grinned and gestured with his hand, "Not even up to my waist." Chu Wanning tripped precipitously at the words. "Be careful." "Shut it." If he were alive, Chu Wanning's ears would be red with annoyance. "You're only taller than Xiaosini and not taller than me." Moran laughed. He was not really comparing heights with his Shizun, though he did grow taller a bit. So, compared to when they were in Kaidi town, he is now on the same height as his Shizun. He glanced at his Shizun out of the corner of his eye and secretly made a note to himself. He thought that after his body completely developed in a few years, he must compare the two of them. So, while Taxian Jun was scheming something, Elder Yuhan was feeling conflicted. Although he had most likely guessed that Moran knew that he was Xiaosini, hearing him say it directly embarrassed him a great deal. After all, he did call Moran Gag with his head tilted up in a sweet manner. The more he thought about it, the more embarrassed and angrier he became, so Chu Wanning ran even faster, leaving Moran behind. Moran knew what he was thinking about and did not rush after him. He kept a distance of only half a step behind him. As they ran against the howling night wind, Moran looked at the man close by. His red clothes belying the blood, like a fallen maple and a flowing haze, the gold butterflies on his robe embroidered in vivid colors, the hem of his robe becoming more and more luminous. A bitter and sweet insatiable feeling rose steeply in his heart. At this moment, he was grateful that he was still able to meet Chu Wanning and receive his guidance like he did in the past. A few years later, if everything goes well, he would be able to lower his head by half and enrage Chu Wanning with a smile on his face. This disciple is taller than Shizun. This disciple will stand obediently while Shizun can pad his feet. His heart was very warm. He just thought that the heavens have really treated him well. Not everyone who makes a mistake has a chance to start over, and not everyone who had been hurt are understanding and forgiving. His Shizun was a cold-faced but warm-hearted man, and it had taken him so long to learn that. After two more groups of pursuers, the main entrance to the palace was within sight. Looking back, the soldiers were too far behind to catch up with them. Moran breathed a small sigh of relief, but before he could let go of that sigh, he heard a sudden thunderclap in front of him. In the midst of the thunder and fire, an enormous palanquin appeared. It was being steadily carried on the shoulders of 8 bulky and muscled-bodied men. On top of the palanquin sat a slightly fat man wrapped in white animal fur with long hair and a languid demeanor. There were beautiful women on his left and right, one pounding his shoulders and the other feeding him cherry fruit. Although the man with the big belly was a soul, he had already cultivated a physical body, so the fruit was actually being eaten like a living person and not just passing through for a taste. The man licked his lips, pinched the beauty's chin by his side and gave her a cloying kiss before lifting his eyes. He then gave Chu Wanning and Mo Ran a nonchalant look and then sneered. This is really not good. The treasure that this king has fallen in love with has been snatched by someone who is unwise. He said, leisurely. Little cultivator, who gave you the nerve? Chu Wanning was blue in the face and looked extremely uncomfortable. He was actually called a treasure by such a greasy lecher in front of Mo Ran. If he still had his spiritual power, Tianwen would have whipped the bastard into pieces already. Mo Ran's expression was not good either, but he knew that his current cultivation was not enough to protect Chu Wanning while fighting the fourth king, so he could only talk. He stepped forward and cupped his fist. Your Majesty, I am sorry for destroying so many rooms of your palace, but I have to take this person with me. Oh, you're taking him away just like that? Laughed the fourth king. Let me tell you something. Look at what he is wearing. This is the wedding robes of the ghost realms. He is wearing my fine rise as he is mine. Since he is wearing this auspicious clothes, he can't step out of the palace gate. If you don't believe me, you can try. After a pause, he added, if you forcefully take him out of the palace gate, his soul would be crushed by the spiritual power in this wedding robes at the entrance of the palace, so think carefully. It was then that Mo Ran realized why Rongju had said that everyone on the East Hall was tied up but Chu Wanning was not. It turned out that this red robe he was wearing was. Squeezing his fingers into a fist, Mo Ran said, I want to take him away, but I won't let His Highness suffer any losses. If there is something His Highness want in exchange, I will do my best to give it to him. This king only wants beauties. And lately, I'm tired of having the gentle and obedient ones, so I wanted the one next to you, cold and uncaring. I haven't had that before. Seeing the colors of Mo Ran and Chu Wanning, the fourth king found it amusing and sat up slowly, saying, but to be honest, in all the years I have been in the underworld, this is the first time I have seen someone trespass into my palace and act so wildly. It's interesting. Can I ask you, who are you to him? Mo Ran said, he is my Shizun. He's just your Shizun. The fourth king threw his hands and laughed. I thought it was some kind of life and death relationship. Mo Ran said, he doesn't like you, so what's the point of forcing him to stay? The Ghost King waved his hand lazily. Childish, it's not important if he likes me or not. What this king want is his flesh, not his heart. Furthermore, the Ghost King smiled and said, if he doesn't like me, does he like you? If he is already yours, then I wouldn't be interested. Although I love beauties, I really don't like those we are already married. It is a pity that he is only your Shizun. At these words, Mo Ran was stunned and then suddenly laughed. Does His Highness meant it? This king is the lord of the fourth level of hell. What is the point of lying to a brat like you? Then let me ask one more question. If Shizun had already gotten married and then wears these auspicious robes of His Highness, will it still be effective? Naturally it would be useless. This king never likes to play around with other people's spouses. The fourth king frowned, but why are you asking this? Is your Shizun married? Chu Wanning, with his face in his hands said, no way. Mo Ran, shamelessly, said, yes. Fourth king. Before Chu Wanning could say any more, Mo Ran suddenly tugged him by the hand and pulled him towards the main entrance. As he walked, he turned back to the fourth king and said, Your Majesty, don't pay any attention to him, my Shizun has a bad memory. Look, Your Highness just said that if he is already married, this auspicious robe will not be effective. Let's not rub our noses in it. I will take him out myself, and if we get out successfully, I will ask your majesty to let us leave. If I am to lie, there will be no grievances between life and death." Chu Wanning said, "Mo Ran, are you crazy? When we were in Kaidi town, it was just a show, it couldn't count as." "How can it not count?" Mo Ran was resolute and sure of himself. "We've drunk the wine, we've kowtowed, in front of heavens, the family, and each other. So, how can't it be counted as one?" Mo Ran. The Ghost King, who had been in the underworld for hundreds of thousands of years, was really bored. Suddenly seeing this sort of dispute, he found it extremely amusing. He patted the beautiful woman's thigh next to him and asked her to feed him another dried fruit, saying as he chewed, "Yes, you can go. If you get out without any problems, I won't stop you. If you die, you'll be asking for it." Mo Ran said, "Thank you, Your Highness." The main entrance of the palace is covered with a layer of barrier that shine with a faint purple light. It was clearly meant to trap the spirits. The closer Chu Wanning got to the barrier, the more reluctant he became. How could such a half-hearted marriage be possible? But Mo Ran came close to him at that moment and whispered to him, "Don't worry, Shizun, the marriage ceremony between you and me is definitely valid." "How can it be valid? Please listen to me just this once. This is something that I know in my heart," he said, clasping Chu Wanning's fingers with his backhand, a fine sweat on his palm. "In the unlikely event of any misfortune, I will accompany Shizun." Chu Wanning shuddered, his eyes widened and he looked at him in astonishment, as if he had never seen this person before. Mo Ran smiled at him and said, "I owe Shizun a lot. This time, I won't leave Shizun alone." Chu Wanning was silent for a long time and whispered, "Why?" "For Shizun, why not?" Chu Wanning sighed softly as his eyelashes drooped. In the end, he did not push him away. The two of them stood at the entrance of the purple lightning barrier, hand in hand. Behind them the spirits and demons were sitting idly as they watched the action. "Shall we go?" "Let's go." It was unknown who clasped whose hand first, but they clasped so hard, cold overlapping hot, sweaty wrapped in dry, pale against wheat-colored. The heavenly fire was surging while the lightning was roaring. The barrier was like a huge waterfall, rushing in almost at the same time. Flaming stones shot down from the sky and engulfed the entire mountain. And river like a hot knife through butter, as if the next second, the two people who dared to step out of the life and death gate would be torn to shreds and burned to ashes. The lightning fire burst out with dazzling brilliance, so bright that it was almost white. Seeing that it was about to land on the two of them, even though Mo Ran had been having these thoughts, before this all happened, he had always wanted to give his Shizun his respect and love from today onwards. He will not disobey him, and even more so, will not have any thoughts of sullying his Shizun. But in this moment of uncertainty, he jerked his head and suddenly wanted to see Chu Wanning's face again. But then, in the turbulent rain formed by the boundary, Chu Wanning was also looking at him. Those phoenix eyes were once stern, resolute, deplorable, hateful, stoic, but now they seemed to have the serenity of a moment when everything was going to end. He didn't know if it was just his imagination, but there was deep affection in them. Mo Ran had never seen Chu Wanning with such eyes before. His head buzzed, and he felt as if the battlements were collapsing. Suddenly, a warm feeling of love burst out from his chest. He didn't even have time to consider what sort of feelings they were. He only felt that his heart was boiling, and his blood was, too. In a split second, he reached out his hand and held Chu Wanning tightly in his arms. His frantic heartbeat collided with the trembling spirit souls. His chest hit others' chest. Before he went down to the ghost realm, he didn't actually have the thought of dying together with Chu Wanning. He always felt that the person he loved was Shimei, and would happily live or die together with Shimei only. However, a calamity had truly descended upon them. He then, without thinking much about it, took Chu Wanning in his arms, as if he wanted to rub the other man's flesh and blood into his own and hide his soul into his own. Chu Wanning. I'll stay with you. Aya, didn't think it was really a pair of lovebirds with bitter life. A teasing voice suddenly sounded in his ears, this king has caught the wrong ghost. This young cultivator had indeed been to the marriage hall with his Shizun. Mo Ran's eyes opened abruptly. The lightning that was supposed to tear them to shreds had somehow turned into thousands of dandelions, dancing and flying around them, drifting back like snow. The fourth king stood up with a smile and took up their positions not far from the palace gates, clapping their hands slowly and deliberately. After centuries of boredom, I've watched a good show today. Chu Wanning. Mo Ran had not yet returned to his senses, his head was still dizzy. He looked at the fourth king and then twisted his head to look at the person in his embrace. Suddenly he realized that it was outrageous of him to hold his Shizun like this, so he withdrew his arms in haste. Chu Wanning also came out of his trance and turned his face sideways, not knowing what kind of expression to show on his face. After a moment, he straightened his robes and stood by without saying a word. To break the awkwardness, Mo Ran looked up and asked the fourth king, "That's it, right? His Highness is not playing a trick." "No, not ever." The fourth king shook his head with a wry smile. "Day after day has been the same. How long has it been since I've seen this kind of hilarity? Well, just for letting me see a good show, you can go now. There are so many beauties out there and there's no shortage of soul that I could marry." Mo Ran immediately felt elated. He thought, this fourth king is much more honest than the ninth king that Chu Sun met. He may be a lecherous devil, but at least he does what he said and acts like a real king. With this in mind, he pulled Chu Wanning along and started to leave. At that moment, the clouds cleared and the moonlight shone on Mo Ran, casting a thick, dark shadow without moving. The fourth king did not react at first, still smiling, pleased with himself for having watched a rare hilarious scene. He turned and gestured to the beauty next to him to feed him another grape. The beauty's fingertips peeled away the skin of the purple fruit and brought the sweet and crystalline flesh to the lips of the fourth king, who was about to open his mouth when he suddenly realized something was wrong and turned around and said sternly, "Stop." His eyes were fixed on the shadows on the ground, his gaze lifted inch by inch and finally landed on Mo Ran's face. "Look, what's that on the ground?" Mo Ran looked down and realized with a start that there was still a blurred shadow under his feet. The fourth king's teasing and playful expressions were all swept away. He narrowed his long and thin eyes, which shone with the luster of a vulture pouncing on its prey. "How can you be in the underworld when you are a living flesh and blood?" End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 116. Shizun meets Rongju. Chu Wanning saw the light coalescing in the fourth king's hand and immediately gave Mo Ran a push, saying, "Run." Without needing to be told twice, Mo Ran took Chu Wanning by the arm and the two of them leapt from the ground, heading towards the palace gate. Mo Ran was furious as he cursed, Master Huizhui's spell was not meticulous enough. How could he have left me with a shadow that would reveal me? Chu Wanning, for some reason, didn't react too badly when he heard his disciple call out his master. He only glanced at Mo Ran at the corner of his eyes as if wanting to say something, but in the end did not say anything. "You want to escape?" grunted the fourth king from behind. "It's not so easy." Both of their qinggong was excellent. Seeing that the palace doors were about to completely close, the two of them stepped on the walls and helped themselves up. At the same time, the fourth king summoned thunder in his hands. With a wave of his hand, a bolt of lightning struck down on the palace gate. In that instant, the palace wall that was only a few tens of feet tall rose up from the ground, as if it wanted to meet the light of day. At the same time, palace gates roared shut extremely fast, sealing them in all directions. Mo Ran cursed under his breath, dragged Chu Wanning and ran. Even if they couldn't leave the palace, it is important not to get caught by the fourth king. The fourth king has powerful spells, but perhaps because they indulge in much debauchery for thousands of years, this king's physique was not as strong as the other ghost kings of the ghost realm. Running for 50 steps was enough to make him gasp for breath. With the iron rule of never sitting when you can lie down and never standing when you can sit, the fourth king have been lazy for thousands of years, turning himself into a garbage in terms of lightness skill. He was furious when he saw Chu Wanning and Mo Ran running further and further away from him. He did not have a good relationship with the other 8 ghost kings, as he often encroached in the others' territories in search of beauties to add to his harem. Due to this, he couldn't ask them for help with this incident. What's the big deal about running fast? This king is plump, however you can't escape this king's palm. The fourth king rubbed his belly. He was even a bit angry and aggrieved. He felt even more wronged when he turned around and saw the 8 able-bodied men who was carrying his palanquin merely standing by and not moving. What are you doing standing there for? This king's legs are noble, so it's inconvenient to chase. Aren't you going to chase as well? It was said that the fourth king was a beautiful man when he was thin, but because they had not tasted delicacies from human realm for a long time, when he cultivated a physical body, he binged on gluttony. He would eat all time, whether he was sitting, laying down or even walking. Even during the busiest time in the underworld, he would have people around him, not to grind inkstone or spread paper, but to cut fruit or feed him pastries to eat. Because of that, the peerlessly beautiful man forcibly stuffed himself into the shape of a fatty. Although he had a good foundation and would not have gained too much weight even if he ate a lot, he still lost his good looks. After that, the fourth king threw out all the mirrors in the palace, and the word fat became his most hated word. It was said that there was once a beautiful concubine who sang a little song for him. The first 3 lines of that song were half moon bend, half moon bend, half moon. Before she could even finish the 3rd line, she was kicked in the chest by the fourth king, who then scolded, "Fatty! It's not enough to put up with your 2 fats, you still have to sing it a 3rd time. Don't think that just because it's not direct, this king will not be able to recognize that you are belittling me in a roundabout way. Audacious thing." At present, the palanquin bearers lowered their heads one by one, letting the fourth king voice his complaints. One of them was more quick-witted and said, "Your Majesty is so strong and agile. If His Majesty could not catch up to them, how could we?" The fourth king then took a deep breath and stopped chasing. He then turned his head to the servant and said, "And, what you said makes sense, doesn't it? At least you know your own limitations. All right, let's do it like this. Go and pass on this king's order. All the doors of the palace are to be shut tight, the walls of the palace are to be filled with sealing spells. Don't even let a fly out." He spat, spitting out the grape seeds he had been holding in his mouth, and said sinisterly, "I'll see how far they can get." Mo Ran and Chu Wanning are extremely agile, and with all the twists and turns in the palace, they soon left the ghosts chasing them behind them. They hid in a narrow alleyway. Chu Wanning, being a ghost, did not feel tired after running for a long time, but Mo Ran, being immortal, leaned against the wall and catch his breath. Chu Wanning glanced out glumly. He sealed off the palace. Mo Ran slowed his breath and waved his hand. "It's all right, Shizun. If you enter the soul-calling lantern, we can return directly to the mortal world. He won't be able to stop us." Chu Wanning nodded, but for some reason, he looked a little worried. Mo Ran, who was taking out the soul-calling lantern, did not notice this. He then recited the required incantation, but the lamp merely flashed its golden lights for several times before it was quickly extinguished. Chu Wanning's earth spirit was still standing in front of him, unmoving. "What's going on?" Mo Ran was shocked. "Why isn't it working?" The worry between Chu Wanning's eyebrows became more apparent as he sighed and said, "Just as I thought, the teleportation spell is not working here." I'm afraid we'll have to go out of the palace before we can cast the spell to return to the mortal realm. Mo Ran sniffed, biting his lips. With a stubborn look in his eyes, he said after a long while in a hoarse voice, "No matter what, I will take you out of here." Chu Wanning looked at him and said, "We have to hurry. The palace is vast and it will not be easy for the ghosts to find you, but there is no water or food here, so I will be fine, but you will not last much longer." Mo Ran laughed, "I can endure the hunger. I've had practice since I was young." After a moment's reprieve, when complete silence had fallen around them, the two men exited the alley and walked down the long, empty, stone street, the cool moon-like water, soaking the two of them. One with a shadow, the other without, walking side by side. Mo Ran said, "Shizun, I'm sorry if I have offended you when we were by the palace gates." Chu Wanning seemed stunned for a moment, then dropped his lashes and his gaze went cold. "No harm done. The situation compels me to speak and some of my words may be offensive. I'm sorry." Chu Wanning. "I'm sorry that I said that you were married." Chu Wanning stopped abruptly and said icily, "How long are you going to apologize? Won't you say anything else?" "Something else?" Mo Ran was baffled, thought about it rather seriously for a moment, and carefully and genuinely changed the word, then. "I'm so sorry." Chu Wanning brushed it off. Poor Mo Ran did not know that his words had upset him again, but he was afraid of disturbing him, and he was scared that if he said more he would annoy his Shizun even more. So, he scratched his head in place and followed closely. "Shizun. Halfway through the walk when Mo Ran couldn't help but ask, "Have you had any karmic encounters before?" Chu Wanning paused, turned back and asked, "What do you mean?" "I found another of your earth souls in the ghost realm. In other words, you have one more soul than the normal. I met Shizun at the Shunfeng house and I asked him about it. He said that the extra soul shouldn't be something that you had from the beginning." Mo Ran was a bit hesitant. "But adding the mortal body in the mortal realm, I have indeed seen 4 of Shizun, so I think. Did Shizun have some sort of previous ties before?" Chu Wanning was silent for a moment and seemed to think of something. The light in his eyes shifted slightly, but then he closed his eyes and said, "I don't think so." He paused, seemingly a little puzzled and hesitant, and went on to ask, "Do I really have 4 souls?" "Yes." Chu Wanning didn't know why, but after a moment's reflection, he sighed, "This is not something I can solve, so it doesn't matter, let it be." As the two continued cautiously along the remote path, they probed for the spiritual power of the spells used by the 4th king to seal off the entire palace. All spiritual barrier have a soft spot where it is vulnerable. Chu Wanning said, and came to a key building, and ran his fingers over the coarse walls, which had a fine blue sheen running through them, and closed his eyes to catch the flow of spirits under the masonry, but as he had no magical powers at the moment, it was very difficult to feel them. After a while, he lowered his hand in frustration and shook his head. "My spirit soul is incomplete and my strength is damaged, so I don't know how to break through for a while." Mo Ran said, "Why don't Shizun teach me and let me give it a try?" "That won't do. Examining spiritual barriers is very complex. It is not something that can be learned in a day or two." Mo Ran then asked, "Then normally, what are the weaknesses of spiritual barriers? Let's try them over one by one. Every barrier have weaknesses that is unique. If we look for them one by one, then I really don't know how long it would take us. We won't know until we try." Mo Ran laughed, "Maybe we'll be extra lucky." Chu Wanning was about to say something when he suddenly caught a glimpse of a shifting white shadow around the corner. His brows knitted as he made a move as if to summon Tianwen but couldn't do it, and so he called out, "Who's there?" The white shadow immediately tried to flee. How could Mo Ran give him the opportunity to do so? He immediately swept over to the ghost and grabbed it, covering its mouth and nose so that it could not call out, then twisted its hands behind its back and kicked it to its knees. When he looked at him, he was furious. Rongju. The young man on his knees was delicate and fair, like a willow swaying in the wind. However, there was a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. He turned his head away and didn't say anything. Mo Ran angrily said, "Are you going to give us away again? Do you really think I won't kill you?" Chu Wanning walked over. He had never seen Rongju before. He looked down and asked Mo Ran, "Do you know him?" Mo Ran did not know what to say, thinking that when he was caught to have committed the crimes of theft and adultery and was sent to public trial by Chu Wanning, it was because of the incident with Rongju. At that time, he only felt that Chu Wanning was ruthless and felt resentful towards him, but now that the old account was laid out in front of him, he could not help but feel ashamed. Chu Wanning didn't feel anything was amiss, he could only say that the surmise that he was an old acquaintance of Mo Ran's. "Since he has come with you, don't leave him here in the palace. Once we found a way out, we can take him with us." As he spoke, he looked at Rongju carefully again and added, "You seem like a nice person, an early reincarnation is the right thing to do." Mo Ran. Rongju was initially a bit flustered, but after hearing what he said, he was stunned for a moment before he smiled. He looked at Mo Ran with his soft and charming eyes and asked, "So, this is Shizun." "What Shizun? Why do you call him Shizun?" Mo Ran was furious, "He is my Shizun." Rongju was feeling resentful, so he deliberately added fuel to the fire. He then said slowly, "Oh, my Shizun. You dash." As this went on, Chu Wanning realized that something was wrong. "Mo Ran, do you have a problem with him?" I. Rongju smiled and said, "Good Shizun, don't be mean to him. I don't have any past conflicts with him, just some old friendships." His words were ambiguous, but his tone was extremely suggestive. Chu Wanning did not speak, his eyes were slightly narrowed, and his lips were slowly pursed. He looked indifferent, but the gloom between his eyebrows could not be concealed. Rongju was the most observant person in the entire brothel. With Chu Wanning's pure personality, he couldn't hide his emotions from him. In his heart, he was slightly surprised. Originally, he thought how audacious of Mo Ran to lust after his mentor, but now that he had seen Chu Wanning in person, it seemed that Mo Ran's unrequited love was not so one-sided after all. Shi Shengpeak was truly dirty. Even though the situation was critical, Rongju could not help but sigh, feeling disgusted and amazed. Double cultivation among men in Jianghu wasn't considered rare, but it is also very unorthodox. Mo Weiyu, a young master of Shi Shengpeak, was actually involved with this Shizun. If news of this got out, what face would sect leader Xue Zhenyang show to the world? Rongju's charming eyes were wide open as he looked Chu Wanning up and down and was about to say a few more provocative words when he heard him spoke. "What's left to talk about old friendships when they're all dead?" "Isn't that what your mightiness asked me?" laughed Rongju. "I'm just answering truthfully." "Who asked you?" Chu Wanning said coldly, "He was the one I was asking from the beginning." It was obvious who he was referring to, and the tone of his voice was full of fire, and he could not have been clearer in his intention to clear the air with Rongju. Mo Ran was relieved to hear that Chu Wanning was favoring him, and his chest heated up as he tried to say a few words to him, but before he could get close, Chu Wanning turned back in anger. "You decide what to do yourself." Mo Ran wasn't sure what he should do. If he left Rongju by himself, he might give them away to the fourth king. But if they brought him along, it would be like bringing a powder keg. If he said anything that he shouldn't, he might choke Chu Wanning to death. After a while, when Chu Wanning became busy examining the fourth king barrier, Mo Ran picked up Rongju's lapels and spoke to him in a lowered voice, "What do you really want? My heart is clogged and unsettled." Rongju's eyelashes fluttered delicately, a shimmering light shining inside. I just can't stand to see evil people like you being able to start all over again. Mo Ran, however, knows that Rongju wasn't the kind of person who would harm others by putting himself in peril. Even if he is resentful, living comfortably was the most important thing for him. There was no reason why he would risk himself to follow them. His gaze swept across and landed on Rongju's feet. The overly slender, white feet had one shoe on and the other one was covered in sludge, clearly the result of fleeing in a hurry. Mo Ran narrowed his eyes. Tell me the truth. Rongju, didn't I say that the truth already? If you continue to lie and threaten me, I'll immediately blindfold and gag you and throw you down a dry well. Since you're already a soul, you won't die from hunger but you won't be able to escape either. Mo Ran paused, then whispered, you're on your own. As expected, Rongju's expression changed. After a while, he said, I've changed my mind. I don't want to stay here. You have to take me out. All right. Then, let me ask you again, were you the one who informed the patrol earlier and let them know where I am? Even if you didn't say anything, I still had a way to interrogate you. A red light flashed in Mo Ran's hand as he whispered, speak. Yes, I did, but so what? Rongju raised his chin, his eyes flashing with resentment. How would I been able to escape if there was no diversion for them to be busy with? Mo Ran suddenly loosened his clothes and laughed out of extreme anger. You sure know how to add insult to injury, you bastard. I would even spit blood. Rongju slowly tidied his clothes then glanced towards Chu Wanning. Young Master Mo, you care a lot about that man, do you? What do you think he will do if I tell him in details what you used to do to me? End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 117. Shizun told me to get the hell out. When Rongju said this, he meant that Chu Wanning would certainly be upset, jealous and unable to bear it. However, Mo Ran didn't know that Chu Wanning's feelings for him are actually love. He thought after hearing these words that Rongju was threatening to tell Chu Wanning of all the questionable deeds he had done with the man. Immediately, he said, don't you dare tell him. Rongju laughed charmingly but with his face full of loud. With a gentle voice, he said, then you must protect me as well and take me away from here. I'll be good. I promise not to say anything, and I won't cause any trouble. Mo Ran had no choice, so he cursed under his breath as he turned his head and left. Knowing that this was his tacit approval, Rongju happily followed him. Mo Ran had not taken 2 steps when he suddenly turned back. He pointed his finger at him and said in a low voice, Rongju, if you don't behave yourself, I'll make sure your soul will be scattered before you can even touch the wheel of reincarnation. I will not offend you if you don't offend me, and I will be honest if you don't bully me. Mo Ran, you still don't know what kind of person I am? Aren't you my old benefactor? In his previous life, Mo Ran used to like how he talked softly, so he felt disgusted at the moment. However, there was nothing he could do about it and could only watch Rongju walk towards Chu Wanning's way. He was puzzled. How could he be so blind before? Song Kayutong. Rongju. What sort of people were they? What could he have seen and liked about them before? If he could be reborn in front of himself in the previous life, he would definitely grab onto Taxian Jun's neck and open up the ladle of that man's head to see how much water was inside. Fortunately, Rongju did not say everything to Chu Wanning. He could tell that this man was not well versed in the matter of the heart, so he made up some flippant explanation about himself until the frown on Chu Wanning's face slowly disappeared. Chu Wanning thought he had misunderstood this young man's old friendship with Mo Ran because his mind was not pure. So, although his expression did not change, in his heart, he was somewhat embarrassed. Since Rongju had been to the palace earlier and therefore more familiar with the place, he said to Chu Wanning, although this street is less crowded, it's not exactly hidden, so if you need to take your time to find a way to break the barrier, I'll take you to another place. The other place he was talking about was in fact a storehouse for weaving of clothing in the ghost realm. White linen was piled very high, and could be used to conceal one's whereabouts. The three of them found a remote place to rest. Chu Wanning's fingers touched the wall as if he were taking a patient's pulse, trying his best to sense the spiritual powers covering the palace at the moment. However, even after a long time, he was still unable to find out any weak spot. Moreover, this futile action was consuming Chu Wanning's spiritual energy, thus his soul was getting weaker and weaker. Mo Ran covered the back of his hand and removed his hand from the wall. Chu Wanning was annoyed and helpless. He stared at his palm and said sullenly, "Why does my soul have no spiritual energy? Can I share mine with you? I can't use it." Chu Wanning looked at Rongju in the distance and spoke softly, "You are a human, and I am a ghost. Yin and yang energy repel each other." After resting in the same spot for a while, Chu Wanning started to probe again. If he had all three souls and his techniques, he would have been able to detect the weakness of the fourth king's incantation simply by sending a strong spiritual current into the barrier. But at the moment, his spiritual power was so minimal that he could barely probe the barrier. It was like trying to catch a floating leaf in the middle of the ocean, it was too difficult. After waiting for an hour, Rongju became a little agitated. He ran over to Mo Ran and pulled him in. "Are we going to make it or not?" Mo Ran said, "Don't make a fuss and sit here quietly. I'm about to die from anxiety. Just give me a definite answer, can we possibly make it? It's useless to be anxious. Just wait." Rongju said, "Shouldn't your Shizun supposed to be powerful? Why is it after all this time, there's still no movement? His three souls have not been gathered yet and the soul happens to be lacking in spiritual powers. Can you be quieter?" When Rongju heard this, he seemed a little crestfallen as he listened, his eyelashes fluttering as he sat back down on the pile of cloth built up from white linen. After another hour or so, Rongju stood up and walked over to Chu Wanning and asked the esteemed cultivator, "Don't you have any other ideas?" Without opening his eyes, his fingertips still pressed against the wall, Chu Wanning said, "No." "Well then, is there any other way to recover some of your spiritual powers back?" When Chu Wanning heard this, he pondered for a moment, and asked rhetorically, "Do you have spiritual powers?" "No." Rongju was slightly taken aback, "Why do you ask? If you have it, then pass some of it to me." Rongju said joyfully, "Then it's easy, why don't you let young Master Mo?" Chu Wanning interrupted him, "His is useless." Of course, Rongju did not know that Mo Ran wasn't actually a ghost, so when he heard that Mo Ran's could not be used, the smile on his face immediately froze as he asked, "Why?" "No reason, just different attributes." Mo Ran knew that Chu Wanning was not good at lying and that it was best that the truth that he was not an actual ghost was not known to Rongju, so he immediately interrupted him. "Could you please go outside and keep watch? If someone comes, please run back and inform us immediately." Rongju glared at him in annoyance, but since the three of them were in the same boat, he had no choice but to go near the storehouse door and reluctantly leaned against it, peeling his fingernails while raising his smoky peach blossom eyes to look out. Mo Ran gave him a look before taking a seat next to Chu Wanning. After a moment's hesitation, still not wanting to deceive Chu Wanning, he spoke, "Shizun, I think I want to confess my mistakes to you. What did you do? That. Do you remember the year you sent me to the platform of sin and virtue for punishment because I had committed? Mo Ran paused and did not have the nerve to say debauchery. The human face is a delicate thing. It could be as thick as the Great Wall when it doesn't matter, but as thin as paper when it does. Mo Ran bowed his head, blushing, and said softly, because I broke the 4th, 9th, and 15th sect rules. The 4th commandment, theft. The 9th commandment, lasciviousness. The 15th commandment, deceit. Of course, Chu Wanning didn't fail to remember, and he opened his eyes without looking at Mo Ran and simply said, N. Looking at that handsome and restrained face, Mo Ran felt even more ashamed of himself. After a while, he lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, Shizun, I'm sorry. Chu Wanning had already vaguely guessed what he was going to say, and although he was annoyed, he had always been able to prioritize the important matters, not to mention that this matter is not something he had just came to know now. He turned to Mo Ran and said coldly, haven't you already been punished? And then you never did it again? Now, why do you bring it up again? Because of that Rong Jew outside. Actually, Mo Ran did not continue speaking. Chu Wanning also did not say anything for a long time. Then after a while, Mo Ran heard Chu Wanning sneered, so it was him. He didn't dare to look up at Chu Wanning. Shisheng Peak disciples are not forbidden to have relationships. In fact, it was normal for the sect disciples to dual cultivate or have a lover outside. However, Chu Wanning was different. He cultivated with the way of pure heart and had always disliked men and women's love affairs. Moreover, this affair of Mo Ran was in a brothel. Xue Zhenyang spoiled his nephew and may think this is not a serious matter because Mo Ran is not practicing the cultivation of pure heart. He was therefore not expecting him to be completely unadulterated and turn a blind eye to it, but Chu Wanning couldn't stand it. He would be disgusted. A reaction that Mo Ran had clearly seen in Chu Wanning's eyes when he was punished at the platform of sins and virtues that year. He was sure that in Shizun's eyes there would be disgust, contempt, and dislike. Even though this matter happened a long time ago and that he had never done it again since, now that Rong Ju had come across Chu Wanning in the ghost realm, wouldn't Chu Wanning feel uncomfortable? It wasn't that he didn't want to tell Chu Wanning, it's just that there's no good way to tell him these. Mo Ran was not afraid that Chu Wanning would beat him up and scold him about it. He even wanted Chu Wanning to take Tianwen out again and interrogate him with it as long as this matter would not negatively affect the current situation. Otherwise, if Chu Wanning got angry enough that his earth soul would refuse to go with him, Mo Ran would probably kill himself. So, the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Rather than keeping Rong Ju, a walking gunpowder, from going off, he decided it's better to go to Chu Wanning, confess the real situation and apologize for it. He had decided that should Chu Wanning got up and left, he would immediately take the risk of tying him up. While Mo Ran was practicing in his mind how to block Chu Wanning's path, Chu Wanning's clothes slightly moved as the golden red silk threads shone brightly in the dim light. Mo Ran's heart trembled as he whispered, Shizun. The punishment has been given, so the matter is already over. Why are you telling me this? Chu Wanning replied. His eyes slanted to the side, and his expression was cold. His thin lips opened and closed and then said with a bit of a mocking tone. What does it have to do with me? He didn't expect him to say that it has nothing to do with him. Mo Ran was stunned. Chu Wanning was so full of jealousy, but Mo Ran didn't even notice it. He only felt flustered, thinking that his Shizun was completely disappointed in him, that he didn't want to bother with him anymore, that he didn't care about him anymore. He then became anxious and said, "Shizun, it was my fault in the past, so don't be angry." "Why should I be angry? What's there to be angry about?" Although he said so, the more he thought about it in his heart, the more unhappy he became, and in the end Chu Wanning said angrily, "I knew you were not so innocent. What old friendships? You actually wanted to deceive me? Get out. Get out." Even though he knew there was a sour taste in his voice and these are old matters, Chu Wanning still scolded in a low voice, "How shameless." Mo Ran didn't move, but sat frozen next to him, his eyes staring straight to Chu Wanning. After a while he said, "I'm not leaving." Chu Wanning said angrily, "Go away. I don't want to see you right now. I'm not leaving." He knew he was clearly such a hateful person, but when he looked at Chu Wanning, his eyes turned red, and somewhere within him, faint sense of pity and stubbornness emerged. "I was afraid that if I left, you would run away. Shizun, don't leave me behind." Chu Wanning did not know that he would think this way. He was aware of the culture of the cultivation world. Anyone who didn't cultivate the way of pure heart would have a moment of weakness and would inevitably engage in acts of debauchery. It was considered normal. Mo Ran was not Xue Meng. Xue Meng had received the most excellent nurturing and care since he was young. His parents were upright and his family was strict in his upbringing. This was why he didn't act rashly like the other members of influential families. But what about Mo Ran? A capricious and casual personality. He grew up in a music hall. The father was absent and the mother was a famous songstress. He was an unsupervised dog, who grew up to the age of 15, when his uncle brought him back from the mud puddle, with his hair matted and mud all over him. Chu Wanning would be a fool to believe that he was innocent and an untainted piece of jade. Even though he was clear on the fact that the one he met was a beauty with 9 faces and had messed with Mo Ran, Chu Wanning was still displeased. Since he couldn't chase away Mo Ran, he simply turned around and closed his eyes to probe the barrier. As he was testing the barrier, he couldn't help but think of Rongju's delicate and white face. There was also that cute, light pink mouth. Mo Ran had definitely kissed that bastard before. And that waist, that figure. He couldn't help but think of how Mo Ran had gotten entangled in bed with that man whore. How disgusting. It's one thing to hear something and quite another to actually see it. The more he thought about it, the more unbearable it became. Chu Wanning suddenly opened his eyes. He felt furious, so he stood up and gave Mo Ran a push. "Get out of here. Shizun. Get out." Mo Ran had no choice but to lower his head and slowly make his way to the door of the storehouse. When Rongju saw him coming, he was a little surprised. "Yo. Cultivator Mo, what's wrong? Did you quarrel with your Shizun?" Mo Ran didn't want to deal with him at all. He felt a headache coming when he saw Rongju. The reason he liked him in his previous life was because he had some similarities with Shimei. After he was reborn, the reason he had gotten entangled with him was because he harbored hatred and wanted to make Rongju uncomfortable. But no matter what, the road they walked on was like the marks on a wooden stake, something that could never be restored. Mo Ran said, "Don't sit here, I want to be alone and keep watch, go somewhere else." The entrance to the warehouse was most dangerous and Rongju was happy to leave. But as he took 2 steps, he couldn't help but look back at Mo Ran again. He was suddenly a little curious to know how Mo Ran had died and how it was strange that he seemed to have changed so much in temperament after not seeing him for just a few years. It was really, really strange. His long eyelashes flickered as he sized Mo Ran's back up. Suddenly, he felt that something wasn't right. After looking carefully again, his gaze fell on the tiny shadow beneath Mo Ran's feet. Rongju was stunned. End chapter.